today we're going to be talking trash. You heard right, talking trash. Trash transformed, that is. So I'm asking you listeners, what do you do with your trash? More to the point, your recyclables. Trash you put beside the road. If you're in the country, sometimes they have bags for you or whatever. They just take it off and it goes to the landfill, right? In our house, we recycle. We separate the glass, plastic, and metal. The metal we put into a large barrel until it's full, and then we take it to our local salvage yard. Junk prices haven't been that great the last couple of years, but we get a little help without gas money like that. But every little bit helps, right? So, a little bit of advice if you're going to keep any food containers, anything with food in them, I would advise to rinse out, separate your top of your spaghetti jars with the metal can, throw it in there, separate the glass. I usually try to put a little bit of bleach when I'm rinsing them out. It just keeps down the bugs, the vermin, the little mice and the rats and the raccoons. Soda cans, bees are attracted to if they're not rinsed out. So my experience is, apparently Mr. Raccoon gets up even earlier than I do, and nothing is scarier than stepping outside before the sun comes up while it's still dark to throw something in a recycling bin and seeing Mr. Mass Bandit, Mr. Raccoon, having his breakfast, licking out your tuna cans. Dr. Doodle, I am not. I don't do raccoons. But also on another note, some of those persons in our home, who shall remain nameless, are not as diligent as I am about separating items. So, what happens is, usually on trash day, I go ahead and take the items out, and I separate them and put in the proper bins. So, that's what you need to do. That way you're still cycling, and if it gets in the trash by mistake, you just move it out and put it in the proper bin. Next up, while doing my research, I found the article about our gentleman, our guest artist, in November 2013. Took me all this time to get him on the air. In a small town newspaper, I think it's called Bellefontaine Examiner, which had an article about him presenting a workshop for one of the local schools, Benjamin Logo Middle School. He worked with grades 5 through 8, creating flower pot sculptures that would be on display at their school in their common area to be enjoyed by the staff, students, and visitors. So when I contacted him, he kindly sent me his information and a copy of his 16-page instruction manual on how to make toys, games, jewelry, and lots more stuff using everyday plastic recyclables. So before we introduce our gentleman guest artist, let's take a short commercial break and we will be right back.
Whoa, a digital music player. Thanks, Mom.
Glad you like it. We can finally toss out that old massive stereo.
Mom, you can't just throw out electronics. They need to be recycled or donated.
Recycled? Like aluminum cans?
Yeah, you just go to greenergadgets.org, enter your zip code, and it tells you where the nearest certified recycling center is.
I knew that.
Okay, Mom.
Recycling electronics is as easy as buying them. Log on to greenergadgets.org to find electronics recycling options near you.
Welcome back to our show in progress. This is Charlie Checkers, your host for today's show, and we are talking trash, a.k.a. recycling. Now, if you're just tuning in, our gentleman guest artist is an educator, an artist, motivational speaker, a writer, and so much more. So let's all welcome Eric Marlow to our Global Campfire. Hello, Eric, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be our guest today.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm glad to be here with you and your listeners.
Awesome. So the Bell Fountain Examiner had an article. So I'm going to be talking about that for a few minutes. And if you have anything you would like to put in there, you just let me know. The article came out on Saturday, November 9th, 2013, and it's the big front of it. It's on the front page. So it says Trash Transformed, and it says sculptures created through a grant at BLMS, which is Benjamin Logan Middle School, I imagine. So, as I said before, students 5 through 8 had a hand in creating the sculptures from unusual materials that would be a part of their school's decor for many years. What they normally would be considered trash: empty water bottles, pop bottle straws, plastic grocery bags, and metal hangers, and twist ties. And they transformed them into 2 beautiful, towering flower pots. Their colorful creations will go on permanent display, as I mentioned before, in the common areas of the school for future guests and students to enjoy. Mr. Marlow, who has presented workshops for children for more than 20 years in locations around the U.S. and internationally, offered an opening assembly at the school Monday morning. Then the artist worked with the individual classes to create the sculptures on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It says his visit was made possible through a grant, through a $1,000 Logan County Education Foundation grant funded by the Logan County Solid Waste Management District, received by their art teacher, Miss Jennifer Davis. And I'm quoting Miss Davis, the art teacher here. It's been a wonderful week spent with Mr. Marlow. Our students have been so engaged during his sessions, Miss Davis said. He has a fantastic message about the importance of recycling and renewable energy. He encouraged them about that they are the future generations. So we're so thankful of the support of the grant, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to host a program like this. So the other part was on another page, continued from page 1. So in addition to creating the flower pieces for the sculptures, pupils also made toys out of the recycled items, such as a toss toy made from a water bottle and a hopping frog made with an empty 2-liter bottles. The Columbus resident encouraged the pupils to continue to play and daydream as they get older, as these creative outlets can be a source of artistic inspiration. I'm quoting Mr. Marlow here now. Knowing how to play is an important part of being creative, he said. When I have a break from visiting schools for a few months, I take time to go to my studio and play around with ideas. And pay attention to your dreams and daydreams. Make an effort to write them down. That's where some of my best ideas come from. So making the sculptures and other crafts were made possible through the donation of recyclable items from parents, community members, and area businesses. Miss Davis says Winger's Produce donated the wire that was used, Sherman-Williams gave paint supplies, and Kroger provided collection boxes. The Logan County Solid Waste Management District also donated hundreds of plastic water bottles and PJs, fresh fruit, gave mesh bags for the effort. It's been a true community effort, Ms. Davis says. And for more information about Mr. Marlow's projects, visit www.recyclabits.com. So that is the article, and when I read that, I said, well, how cool is that, to use everything that you may or may not have needed to throw away and be able to use them for art. So you have had quite the exciting and passionate career, Eric. How did it all start?
Well, when I was a little kid, I started recycling way back then. I mean, I think some of your older listeners would remember that, when you'd go to the store to buy pop, it didn't come in an aluminum can or a plastic bottle. It came in a glass bottle, and you had to pay for that bottle. Not only the pop that was in it, but you had to pay for the bottle as well. And then, like when you're done drinking it, you'd take that bottle back to the store, and you got your deposit money back. And I would get my wagon out and go up and down the streets in my neighborhood and collect bottles from my neighbors and take them up to the store, and then I'd turn those in and get the deposit money back, and I'd buy, a comic book or some more pop, or, it was kind of like a way for me to make my allowance. So I've been doing that since I was, pretty small. And that was how it all started. Now, I've also, I have a story that I would like to tell that came about before I started making a bunch of things out of recyclables. I think the first thing that I can remember was I noticed this thick lighter that someone had thrown out, and I picked it up, and I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out, well, where do you put the fuel in this thing? And somebody told me, he said, no, that's a disposable lighter. And I said, wait a minute, this thing looks really great, why would someone want to throw it away? Why don't we just fill it up with some more fuel and use it some more? And that was the first time that I saw, something that was being thrown away that I just couldn't get my head around, the fact that something that was made this well and could have been recycled, refilled, ended up being something that you would just throw away. So that's
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it was hard for me to get my head around that one.
So it's pretty safe to say, I think you agree, that most people don't think about our carbon footprint. And I learned that from my granddaughter, Angel. They're studying that in school right now. Mm-hmm. So I know you'd like to share with our listeners, why is it so important to be aware of our impact on the environment?
Well, I mean, let's just talk about, the main recyclables that we are recycling. And starting with trees, we recycle paper, and paper's made from trees. And, if we just keep throwing that paper away, where does it end up? It ends up in the landfill. In fact, 40% of what is in the landfill is paper. And, if we're recycling the paper, then we don't have to cut down the trees. I mean, trees are a renewable resource, but it takes a long time for that tree to grow up and be, big and healthy and giving us shade and giving us fruits and nuts and maple syrup, all those things that we get from trees. It's capturing the carbon dioxide in the air, cleaning it, and giving us fresh oxygen to breathe. So, man, we don't want to be throwing our paper away. We want to recycle it so we don't have to cut down all those trees. So that's number one, and glass, you can reuse the glass containers and aluminum cans. When you throw an aluminum can, an aluminum can is worth money. In fact, an aluminum can is worth at least a penny. So if you see someone throwing an aluminum can away, it's like they're throwing money away. Does that sound like a good idea? No, I don't think that's a good idea. No. And when we make that aluminum can for the first time, it takes a lot of energy to make that can. And if we make that same can from a recycled can, we save 9/10 of the energy. So those are two things, or a number of things that, are really important and have an impact on the environment.
Yes. So what about any statistics or reports that you know of, or your studies or your own research about this as well? You said that there was a certain percentage that most of it's paper. And so, if you're not going to, it ends up in the landfill. So, you can either burn it or you can recycle it, which is better for our trees and our environment. Mm-hmm. So what else can we, how much else can we do as far as what different items, like the glass, the metal, and all that? But I know
let's talk about plastic. What's plastic made out of? Plastic is made out of oil, and that is a finite resource. There is only so much oil in the ground, and when it's gone, it's gone. Mm-hmm. And we need to be saving our resources, not just using them and throwing them away. So when you recycle plastic recyclables, then that can be turned into lots of different items, and it has a life that keeps giving and giving and giving, rather than it just being something that you use and then it ends up in the landfill buried and you can't use it anymore. So that's one issue that, you know, I see being a way to save energy, save resources, and be a good steward of the earth. And that's one of the things that, you know, I look at as being really important.
Definitely that. I also went on to Recyclabits.com and clicked on to the performances and workshops. And I saw a short one minute and 47-second video, and I could certainly see that you were having a blast, Eric. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, the kids are really engaged in recycling. I mean, they know that it's really important to recycle. I mean, when I first started doing recycling in the schools, you know, it was kind of heavy lifting. This was back in 1990, and some of the people were saying, "Oh, well, you're going to make me recycle," and I'm saying, no, that's not the point. You know, we all need to recycle. It isn't like I'm making you do this. You know, you need to do it because it's good for the planet. You know, so when I talk to the kids, I talk to them about the future because they are the future. You know, it's like we need to use our creativity. And I use creativity every day as an artist. That's one of the things that I do. So I try to demystify the creative process with kids and talk to them about how they can create their future and how they can use different things in the environment to make their future better. One of them is like how to use, instead of using fossil fuel, which is loading the environment with carbon dioxide and carbon products and just, you know, not doing the planet any good, we can be using wind, which is a free energy source, and solar. Both of those don't pollute the environment. They're free, and all we need to do is get it up and running. So I talk to them about how their future is really, you know, is a bright future. And by using their creativity, they can create the kind of world that they want to have.
Definitely. So on the videos there, right below it had a paragraph from the Ohio Alliance, for art education in school programs, and I'm paraphrasing here, but that it said that during your performance and workshops, you share your vision of how to protect our natural resources. So explain. I think you probably just did that. But
I pretty much already explained.
Yeah, you already did that one, didn't you?
Just having the kids be aware that there are a limited number of natural resources that we have on the planet, and that we really need to use them wisely so that we can have the natural resources for creating a safe and clean planet in the future.
Right, because I think sometimes we get, there's plentiful at the moment, and it's dwindling a lot of our natural resources. So we end up taking a lot of it for granted.
Yeah.
And then therefore nobody's thinking about it.
No.
But the children are, since you say of course they are our future. So that's up to them to make sure, you know, that we are paying attention to where our resources are going. Well, I'll tell you what, you're a busy man. So right now, I think we're going to have a quick commercial break to wet our whistles, and we'll be right back to ask Eric about his international travel and educating people of all walks of life in other countries.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Whoa, a new digital music player. Thanks, Mom.
Oh, I'm glad you like it, because I can't wait to toss the big stereo. And now that we got your dad that big HD TV he wanted, we can throw out our old TV, too.
Hold up. You can't just throw out electronics.
Really?
They need to be recycled or donated.
And how would we do that?
It's so easy, Mom. Today, recycling electronics is just as easy as buying them. GreenerGadgets.org has all the info. We just enter our zip code to find a certified recycling center nearby. There are thousands of them, and new ones are being added all the time. Some of our local stores are even certified recycling locations.
I like that.
Did you know that some of the stuff in our old electronics could be used to make new products and conserve natural resources?
Well, okay then. Let's gather them up. What was that website again?
GreenerGadgets.org. We just enter our zip code and go.
Welcome back to our show in progress. This is your host, Charlie Checkers. For those of you who are just joining us, we are talking with our guest artist, Eric Marlow, about recycling. And now our listeners want to know about your international travel. I saw on Recyclabits.com that you went to San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua. Now, what language do they speak? And can you speak it?
They speak Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish.
Oh, that must have been fun.
Well, here's the deal. I'm a visual artist, so as long as I'm drawing pictures or making something in front of them, I really don't need the words because the visual information tells the whole story. And but I had a translator or two that were in the room with me, and they would, help me with words. When I would say something, they would translate it for me. But the language was not a big barrier. I mean, some of the kids were very young, and so they were used to, watching people and picking up what they were doing from what they were doing. So the fact that I'm a visual artist made it a lot easier for me to, I would just draw pictures on the blackboard of what we were going to make, and then I would make it, and they called me Senior Plastico because I was out of plastic, so that was my nickname. And I really had a great time. Would you like me to tell you the story of my trip to...
Yes, definitely. Our listeners are waiting to hear. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. San Juan del Sur is in Nicaragua. It's on the Pacific Ocean. And I was visiting friends there, and they lived in a development that had like a they had a connection with the local schools through a foundation that they ran. They did an after-school program with some of the kids from the schools, and they had a website. So I emailed them, and I said, look, I'm going to be down here at such and such a date. Would you be interested in having me do one of my Recyclabits workshops at their school? And would that be something you'd want to help me put together? And they said, oh, yes, let's do it. So when I came down to have my vacation, I took a couple days out of being on the beach and fishing and doing what tourists do. And I went to the school in San Juan del Sur, and the first class I had was kindergarten, and they didn't have the translator, wasn't there yet, so I had to draw a lot of pictures on the blackboard, and we just started making stuff, and had a really great time with those kids, just with stuff that I had brought and had on hand. And then the next day I was working with some older kids, and we went out into the town of San Juan del Sur, and we picked up a whole bunch of plastic recyclables, that were on the roadside or washed up on the beach. And so we got trash bags and we just cleaned the beach and we cleaned along the roadside and we just picked up all of these what looked like trash, and we took that and we took it back to the school and we washed everything and made it nice and clean. And then we took the plastic bottles and I showed them how to make flowers using the bottles, like cutting off the bottom and then cutting slits down the sides and opening them up and making the petals and using plastic bags for the center of the flowers. And so they ended up taking stuff that was considered trash, turning it into a craft item, and then they were able to take those craft items. Not only did we make flowers, I also taught them how to make bugs, and we took them to there was the foundation that I was working through had a gallery in town, so we took the flowers into the gallery, and the kids sold the flowers and the bugs at the gallery, and they also sold them to the tourists that were coming to visit San Juan del Sur.
Nice.
So, so we cleaned up the environment, provided them with free art supplies, and then they were able to sell that and make money so that they could help feed their family. I mean, Nicaragua is the second poorest country in Central America, and here they were able to take and make money from stuff that was laying around in the environment. And they no longer saw those plastic bottles and those empty trash bags as being trash. They were art supplies. So the kids were picking that stuff up for free and turning it into beautiful items that they sold to tourists for money so they could help feed their families and buy more art supplies to make more projects. And they're still doing it to this day.
That is so cool. What about the older grades? How did that work out with the older grades, the older kids?
Well, they were the ones that were really involved in making the items that they were selling to the tourists. They would take and make up a big bouquet of flowers, all different kinds, and take them down to when the ship would come in, and they would market them there. And the smaller kids, it was like I showed them how to make the book that I had. I took copies of the book, and I gave those to the school, and I also gave it to the local library because, they didn't really have textbooks. The teacher had a book, and they had a blackboard, and that was it. So all they had was paper and pencil, and I was able to give them copies of my book that showed them how to make over 50 things out of an empty soda bottle. And I showed them how to make all kinds of toys and games and jewelry and, things that they could use and pass on to their friends and give away as presents. And so it was a great experience for me to be in a place where I felt like I was really making a difference in someone's life.
Where else have you been in other countries?
Well, the other one that I really spent a bit of time was when I was in Paris. There were artists in Paris, galleries that were showing using artists that were using recyclable materials, and I met a bunch of artists. There was quite a bit going on there, and so I had some pieces of mine, and I showed them some of the stuff that I had made out of recyclables, and it was one way for me to connect with artists in Paris in a gallery situation. And I also did a couple of workshops with kids where we made bugs and flowers and some toys, and it was a lot of fun. For me, having something to share is really a way for me to connect with people in different places that I go. So that was one I had in Paris, and I had a good time doing that one.
Wow. Well, it's exciting to travel to different countries and help educate and even motivate the students to want to make the difference in the first place. Now, there were children in other countries. How did they respond? How different did they respond to what you were trying to teach them than the students here in the USA?
Well, kids are kids all over the world. They have so many things in common. I'll give you a case in point. I walked into the one class in San Juan del Sur, and this was like teenagers that I was teaching this particular day, and all the boys moved to the back of the class. It was like they didn't want to be, don't like embarrass me in front of my girlfriend, or so and kids are like that here. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was the same thing going on, same kind of teenage thing going on, no matter where you are. And so I took one of my soda straws and I cut it and I made a flute, and so then I started making music with the flute. And man, as soon as I started making that flute noise, all the boys came up to the front of the class, and before you knew it, we had a little mariachi band over in the corner. It totally changed the environment. And a lot of times when I'm around kids, I like to make fun of myself so that they're not self-conscious. Well, they can laugh at me. They can, then it opens it up, and they seem more comfortable. And so that was one little story that I had. I also did it in a market. I had some straws. I'm a painter as well as a sculptor and a jewelry designer and making stuff out of recyclables. I'm a multi-talented artist, and so I'm doing a painting in the local market, mm-hmm. and I had found some soda straw, so I made up a couple, and the kids immediately come over to you when they hear the sound of the flute being played, and so then I spent about a half an hour just making flutes for the kids, and mm-hmm. And the parents will come out, and you're not this nobody, you have something that you're giving away for free, and I find that it's a way for all people to open up and be more friendly and accepting of who you are just because of what you do.
Exactly.
And,
well,
you go.
I know that you are having an exciting time traveling like that. So, because we're almost out of time, so we need you, if you could tell our listeners how to find you on all your social media.
Okay. Are you ready? Here we go. My website is Recyclabits, like recyclables, RECYCLABITS.com.
Okay.
So if you go to recyclabits.com, you can, they can order my book from the website. They can email me if they have a personal question. I'd be glad to answer it. Link is on the website, and that's pretty much the extent of my social media platform. My wife does Facebook. I'm sorry, I don't do Facebook. We only had one email address, and so my wife ended up being the one that did that. So,
gotcha.
But every once in a while, I'll show some of my Recyclabits projects on Facebook, and I also do Twitter, and that's about it.
Okay.
And occasionally do a radio show.
Yeah, gotcha.
Or TV spot, and I do a lot of like Earth Day is going to be coming up here real soon, and I'll be doing a whole day at the Earth Day celebration here mm-hmm. in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, nice.
Doing a lot of my projects there.
Awesome. Well, of course, we want to thank all our listeners and sponsors, for without your support, this programming would not be possible. Also, I'd like to thank my research sources, the Bell Fountain Examiner. You can find them at www.examiner.org. And as Mr. Marlow says, Recyclabits.com. There will also be links of these on StorytellersCampfire.org. And would there be anything you would like to add?
Hey, I had a really great time talking to you, Charlie, and I hope all goes well with the program, and I hope your listeners enjoyed me just bumbling along here and telling them all the great things that I've been doing with recyclables, and I hope that they'll continue to do the same, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Awesome. Well, we certainly enjoyed having you on. Such a privilege to have you take your time out of your busy schedule. And remember to sing like no one's listening and dance like no one's watching. You all have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too.
You too. Bye-bye.